Regan Slaymaker for Radiant.Green, and I have the pleasure to be joined by Tom Lowe from Thermal Storage UK. Tom, how are you today?
I'm very well, Regan. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Pleasure to have you on. Obviously, I want to begin kind of to discuss kind of your role at Thermal Storage UK. I was going to say, what do you do at Thermal Storage UK, and kind of how do Thermal Storage UK kind of help decarbonise and revolutionise kind of the UK energy industry?
Absolutely. So I'm the founding director of Thermal Storage UK, which is a not-for-profit trade association. We promote smart thermal stores representing manufacturers such as Sunamp, Tepio and Caldera. We're based just outside Leeds, which is where I'm speaking to you today. And we spend much of our time looking at the interaction between the power system and heating systems, because heat flexibility is going to be really important to how we keep homes warm and make the best use of renewables.
Perfect. Obviously, you talk about heat kind of flexibility there. Obviously, one part of kind of heating is storing the electricity so that you can decarbonize heat as well. Obviously, one of the topics kind of we've discussed before this interview is kind of understanding the role of different types of storage that can support the decarbonisation of not only heating but also transport as well. I was going to say, how do you begin kind of explaining how storage can decarbonise both heating and transport? I suppose probably heating's more focused of what you guys do as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think today around about 90% of homes in the UK are heated with some kind of fossil fuel, whether that's gas or oil or LPG. And one of the ways we're going to decarbonise heating is through electrification. So as we electrify heat, we're going to need storage solutions such as thermal stores, which can reduce peak demand. Peak demand is going to be really important in the future, and trying to get that down, because we've got a network out there, electricity network, and we need to lower the cost of having to build more network and reward people for any flexibility they provide to that network. So smart thermal stores can work with or instead of technologies such as heat pump, and also with instead of solar. There's also actually a role for smart thermal stores in decarbonising industrial processes as well. And today, the energy system does not fully value heat flexibility. So we need various changes to decarbonise heating and industrial processes. This includes reforms such as implementing market-wide half-hourly settlement, completing the smart meter rollout, and I could give you a long list, but maybe I'll save that for the event in Birmingham in October. But the key thing is making sure we have lots of good time-of-use tariffs, which are much more common and actually reward people for the flexibility that they provide.
Perfect. Would you say kind of that's kind of those time-of-use tariffs? Obviously, those are kind of like buzzwords that are coming up at the moment. Would you say they're kind of the main, main thing, you to use a technical term, that is going to be benefiting the customer in the long run when decarbonising kind of Britain?
Absolutely. I think what you want to try and do is have a system that if people have got flexible assets, they can use them and get rewarded for that. So a flexible asset could be, I mean, to some extent, solar is flexible, but thermal stores, electric batteries, EVs, there's a range of different products out there that you can operate flexibly. And if you've got a time of use tariff, it's going to give you, say, a discount in the evening or overnight, and also try and incentivize you away from those peaks in the early evening and sort of early morning. So you're trying to get people to consume at the right times for the grid, and when we're actually producing renewables as well, further upstream, and making sure that value goes to the end customer, whether that's a domestic household, whether that's a business.
Perfect. I was going to say, I do want to touch on kind of the more kind of, let's say, kind of nitty gritty as well, the particular technologies that kind of you think are kind of essential to when decarbonising as well. So in your opinion, what storage kind of tech would you say is going to be most essential, let's say, in the short term and then long term as well?
Well, I think there's no one answer to that. I think it actually depends on, if we're talking about domestic properties, for instance, the type of building you've got. So if you've got space for a thermal store, for a heat pump, for a battery, you might want to have multiple products, assuming you've got the capital to invest in those products, because that's going to give you the sort of biggest bang for your buck as a consumer, and also the biggest bang for the network's buck as well. But not everyone's going to have the space to do that. So some people are going to have to make choices and trade-offs. If you've got limited space, for instance, you're going to potentially electrify your heating. You're going to have a thermal store anyway, because a thermal store, a hot water cylinder is a type of thermal store, and they're commonly installed with heat pumps at the moment. Other products are available from members of Thermal Storage UK. But as you have that product already installed, you want to make sure you can utilize it as flexibly as possible. Other homes, you might not be able to put a heat pump in for whatever reason, and there are lots of reasons why that might not be the case, in which case you might put in another product which can produce its own heat, and store that heat within one system. So there isn't a single answer. It's going to depend, I think, on the property and the consumer's position.
Perfect. And I imagine, obviously, we've got a question here, kind of, how do we reduce the need for network investment? I mean, does that refer to kind of obviously the different types of households, different types of buildings that you're a part of? Go into that question for me.
Yeah, so I think the cost of network investment, electricity network investment between now and 2050, so over the next sort of 26, 27 years, is estimated at somewhere between 100 billion and 300 billion pounds of additional spend. So those are big numbers. You know, you're looking at sort of between 7 to 8 billion pounds a year across that time period as a starting point. Could be a lot more. So flexibility is really important. The government recognises that. The energy regulator, Ofgem, recognises that. And flexibility will include heat flexibility. So the more flexibility you have, the more you can reduce peak demand, the less you need to invest in the network, and the more you can reward people who have got those flexible assets. There will be network investment. I don't think there's any way you can electrify heat, transport, and industrial processes without having to put new cables, substations, and other things in. But you can reduce the overall cost of that and make sure we're utilising the renewable generation that we're producing upstream.
Perfect. I mean, and what kind of is the role of kind of British manufacturers in supporting this decarbonisation as well? Kind of, obviously, it's not just kind of government investment, and that's the main thing. Obviously, everyone needs to band together and commit to this change. Kind of, what is the role of British manufacturers in supporting the decarbonisation of not only heat but transport as well?
Yeah, it's one of the best things about the role I've got, because I'm working with innovative and inventive British companies, and they're absolutely central to decarbonisation. So we've got British companies within the trade association, such as Sunamp, who are based up in Edinburgh, and Tepper, who are based down near Winnish. They're building products to decarbonise domestic heating, while Caldera, who are based down in Southampton, are focusing on electrifying industrial processes. And all those companies are doing really well. So Sunamp has just won the King's Award for Enterprise and is exporting its product to Europe and America. Tepper recently completed a funding round for more than £10 million of investment. Caldera is building a demonstration project for its industrial storage boiler with support from the UK government. So there's a real role for British companies, and we should celebrate them building these products to help decarbonisation.
Definitely. Well, I'll try and get a list of those projects that you just said into the description, so everyone can find those quite easily as well. My final question, Tom, thank you for giving me your time today as well. Obviously, you are speaking at Solar and Storage Live in Birmingham as well. Do give the audience kind of a taste of the topics that you're speaking on, and then who you're speaking with as well.
Yeah, so I'm actually speaking twice. So on the Tuesday, the 17th of October, I'll be on a panel talking about solar in the delivery of the Future Home Standard 2025, speaking with the likes of MCS, Solar UK, and Solar Installers about exciting changes coming to new builds in the coming years. I'll also be chairing a panel on Wednesday, the 18th of October, discussing developing thermal storage for domestic heating, what's in store. So I'll be joined by Thermal Storage UK members Sunamp and Tepio, as well as OVO, plus Advanced Technologies, and an associate professor from the University of Birmingham.
Perfect. Tom Lowe, thank you very much for your time today. And yeah, look forward to see you at Solar and Storage Live.
Excellent. Thank you, Regan. See you there.
Cheers, Tom. Take care.